Is it working now? Is it too loud? Anybody has like hard time with? Is it too loud? Sometimes I start yelling, so just want you to be ready. I mean, I'm not really yelling; it's just passion, but you wouldn't know the difference. But I wouldn't be yelling at you, promise. Okay, fun. You guys ready to have fun? Yes. Perfect. How many of you here, by show of hands, never been to Gilead? This place here, it's called Gilead Healing Center. How many of you have never been here? By a show of hands. Unless you have a frozen shoulder, you got to keep your hands up. So there's a, never been here? So many of you. Well, welcome. Gilead's been around now for 20 plus years. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary. And just a little background about Gilead and when it was built, which I wasn't around. But when it was built, the purpose of this place was to give people like a second chance and to have the supernatural and the natural coming together to help people to be healthier. So underneath this roof here, you might not, it's a pretty big place, but we have lots of practitioners that are here to help people. So we have a physician. Matter of fact, he's right here tonight, sitting right there. His name is Dr. Nebling. He's just joined Gilead, and I'll have to tell you more about him later. But we're very happy to have him. So Dr. Nebling just joined us here at Gilead. He's a primary care physician, and he also does regenerative medicine. And then next month, we're going to have a class. Dr. Nebling is going to be teaching a class. This is going to be on April 24th. We also have a chiropractor, Dr. Denise, i.e. my wife. She's the boss. So just make sure you go repeat that, right? We have a nutritionist. Her name is Helena. We also have massage therapists. And then we have Christian counselors. And people can come in at any time during the week. They can be prayed for. So there's lots of things happening here on a quarterly basis, on a monthly basis. So that's what Gilead is about. So if you've never been here, welcome. I am the clinic director. I've been the clinic director here since 2017. And it's been just an amazing ride to be able to help people in all of those different areas. So I don't know who dragged you here tonight, but I mean, most people come in just for the meals. It's going to happen, but I got to tell you a few things first. Right? So just to make sure we have the right information for the right people, you guys need to play along with me on this here. Bill, are you ready? Okay, so I want you guys to go ahead and stand up, right? All of you are going to stand up. And now, so here's what's going to happen. So if I were to say to you tonight, how many of you here, you know somebody, either yourself or somebody that you know, that's been affected by heart disease? If you know somebody, either yourself, somebody that you know has been affected by heart disease, you can go ahead and have a seat. Well, that didn't take much time. I didn't even get to the second question. So usually I get to the second question and say, how many of you here, either yourself, somebody that you know that's been affected by cancer? Now, we didn't have to get to past the first one tonight, which is truly amazing. So I always tell people, I'm like, listen, we just want to make sure we have the right information for the right people. But tonight we want to talk about chronic illnesses and how does that relate to stress, and how can you, the ability to overcome that? What are the health strategy to be able to overcome that? So in the next, 30 to 45 minutes, right, you will discover the most natural, the most effective, the most powerful way to be healthy and to stay healthy while minimizing the deadly effect of chronic illnesses like heart disease, cancer, diabetes, being overweight, which is truly amazing. We see that much more than ever before, and it's really sad at the same time because ultimately there's something that can be done about it. You follow me? Some of you here have been here before, and if you've been here before and you're like, hey, you know what? I know Dr. Jean-Guy. I've heard him, speak maybe 10 times. That's Sharon. Sharon could probably be here and just do this for me so I could just sit and eat. But I always tell people that I've been here before, I say, hey, listen, you got to ask yourself the question to say, hey, you know what? I've heard this before, but how am I applying this into my life? Because one of my goal here tonight is I always tell people, I'm like, having great information is good, but if you have information without action, it does not lead to transformation. Does that make sense? So if you leave this place here tonight and say, hey, you know what, that was great information, I'm going to be really disappointed. So I'm already giving you a heads up. You guys okay with that? So none of this would make any sense when I start yelling. You're not going to understand why. So I'm going to tell you, I'll give you a little story before we start. Right, I was born and raised in Montreal, Canada. So if you don't know what that is, it's not the North Pole, just so you know. It's like east, mostly, a little bit north. It's about 630 miles from here. And both of my parents, they were young when they married. My mother was 17 years old. My father was 22 at the time. And when they married, my mom did not know that my dad had a problem with his blood sugar. And one day she found him on the ground. She thought he was dead. She rushed him to the hospital. And by the time they got him to the hospital, right, come to find out that 48 hours later, when my dad came out of the hospital, he was in a deep coma when he went in. And when he came out, they told him that he was a diabetic. And at the age of 22 years old, my dad, they told him, they're like, listen, for the rest of your life, you're going to have to give yourself a shot of insulin every morning at 6 a.m. And at 22 years old, my dad started to do that every morning at 6 a.m., give himself a shot of insulin. And in the afternoon, when his blood sugar would start dropping down, he would start eating cake, cookies, skinnies, and ice cream, just so he wouldn't pass out. My father was also a smoker. He smoked 4 packs a day. And if you've never smoked before, just to give you an idea, you wake up in the morning, you got a cigarette in your mouth. That's what is happening with my dad. And then he would be smoking all day long until he hits the pillow at night. He did that from age 22 until he was 30 years old. And by the time he was 30 years old, he developed this condition called peripheral neuropathy. And if you don't know what that is from his knees down, he couldn't feel his legs whatsoever. You could literally take a knife and just jab him in his legs, and he would start bleeding, did not even know what was happening to him. In less than 5 years, my father was 3/4 blind. And the reason why I remember that clearly is because he would come into the bedroom at 4:30 a.m. in the morning, right, when you live on the farm. It's a dream of every farmer, 4:30 a.m., yes. He would say, son, it's time to get up. And I'd be like, what for? And he would say to me, listen, you're going to be driving the tractor. I'm going to tell you where to go. And I'll be right next to you, right, because I can't see. So then what happened is 12 months later, right, 12 months later, by the time he's 36 years old, my father was completely blind. And the reason why this whole thing was happening is because when you don't monitor your blood sugar properly, right, the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to have poor circulation, your body's breaking down, right? You're going to lose your sight. This was all happening. My dad, 36 years old, completely blind. And then what happened is he couldn't work on the farm anymore. And because he couldn't work anymore, lost 40 pounds really quickly because he was depressed. And then what happened is he was confined to the house. And by the time he was confined to the house, he would be in bed about 20 hours a day. And then what happened is because he got so skinny, right, he would turn from one side to the other and he started to develop bed sores. And when he first started, it was about the size of a quarter. And within 6 months or so, the quarter was like this big around. You could literally see every single layer of the flesh all the way down to the bone. And I remember the doctor at that time, we don't get to see that much anymore, but the doctor would come in with his little black bag. He would go right on the main floor, would go right into the bedroom. And then they would take the piece of tape off and the gauze would come off of his hip. And you could see all this stringy yellow stuff coming out, right? It was infected. And then the doctor would clean this up, would put some new ointment, put another piece of gauze on until the next visit next week. This is what happened week in and week out. My father turned to be 40 years old. This was July 12, 1982. And at the age of 40, as you can imagine, he was not doing a whole lot. He would come into the living room about 2 hours a day. Somebody would spoon feed him because he couldn't take care of himself. And then he would go right back to bed, right, and spend the rest of the day in bed. Within 3 months, one day he wasn't feeling well. He already had talked to my mom, and he said, they already had agreed that they would be calling the ambulance. So they called the ambulance that day, and the 2 paramedics comes in. They go right up the stairs. They go right on the main floor. They go right into the bedroom. And as they go into the bedroom, they assessed him. And then they looked back at my mom right out the door. She was right out there, and she was watching what's happening. And they told my mom, they're like, we need to take him in. So they load him up on the stretcher. They roll him out. And as they're rolling him out, right, I looked at my mom. I was right here, and I had I was 9 years old at the time. I got my 2 brothers next to me, my 2 sisters next to me. My mom was 35 years old at the time. And I looked at my mom, and I said, where are they taking Dad? And I asked her that twice, right? And my mom did not say a word. And what I realized at that moment in time, I was 9 years old, I realized that being a good provider was not the most important thing in life. And some of you might be sitting here tonight, and you might be like, hey, you know what? My job in life is to provide for my family. And I would say that that is not correct. You see, my dad thought that being a good provider was most important, but yet, if you don't have your health, you can't provide. You understand that? And what I realized, I've been in practice now for 25 years, and what I realize and notice is when people lose their health, they don't know how to get it back. And when people have their health, they don't know how to keep it. Do you follow me? So tonight, we're here, I'm here in front of you, and I'm like, hey, I want you to understand that when I get going here and I get a little passionate, I might sound like, this guy's a little crazy, but I want you to understand that having seen this early on in my life, I made that choice that if I have anything to say, right, that's the reason why I'm here tonight, because I want people to know better. If I was to ask you the first question on the list here tonight, and remember, you guys are going to be like, I like to work out, been working out my whole life. When I go to the gym, I see two kinds of people. Some of them, they just go there and they sit for an hour, they read the paper, and then they go take their shower and they go to work. That's type A. I know you guys don't do that. And then you have the other kind, they actually work out, and after an hour, they just go to work, right? They're going to take a shower, go to work. You have A or B. Which one would you rather be? That's the B people. You guys are all going to be the B people, going to be the people that's going to be engaged into this thing, right? So I ask you a question. When I ask you a question, you're supposed to answer yes. If I say yes or yes, what are you going to say? Yes. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to say yes or yes. So here's what happened, right? The first question is, do you think that we live in a healthy country? Yes or no? You already know. Even when people know nothing about health, they already know. Right? Today I was reviewing some fun facts. I might get this wrong, and then I'm going to read them to you just to make sure I got this right. But on the CDC website, it says that there's 944,800 people that die from heart disease and stroke every year, short of 1 million. That's a lot of people. Would you agree? At the cost of $244 billion every year. And the loss in productivity is 168. Thank you. That's a lot of money, would you say? And then it goes on to say, it says, listen, there's 1.7 million people that are diagnosed with cancer every year. There's 600,000 people that died every year from cancer. And this will cost 240 billion with a B. Would you say that's a lot of money? And then the next thing on the list is there's 38 million people that have diabetes. There's another 90-some million that are pre-diabetic, but yet they haven't been officially diagnosed with diabetes at the cost of 453 billion by the time it's 2030. And then under number 4, it says that, 22% of our kids right now, they're considered to be obese, not overweight, obese. And then it goes on to say that there's 42% of the adult in the United States of America. Not long ago, when I used to teach this class, right, the numbers was like 30%. But now we are up to 42% of, in this country, in the United States of America, of people that are obese. And if you don't know, being obese, the consequence of that is chronic illnesses. Do you follow me? So this is really, really important. So if I ask any one of you here tonight that said, how many of you here in the next 12 months you'd like to be healthier than you are now? Right? Don't be shy. I've never had anybody saying, I want to be sicker. People don't say that. They're like, well, of course I want to be healthier. And I'm like, well, that's good. Right? But the question is like, how am I going to do that? Wouldn't that be a good question? So the first question is like, do we live in a healthy country? The next question is like, hey, why do you think we're not? Give me some answers. Because you already have the answer. Processed food, lifestyle, what else? Stress. Oh, yeah. People don't have that, right? Medication. Okay. Yes. Too much medication. What else? Stagnation. That's a good word. Stagnation. The answer is yes, yes, and yes. But I want to add 2 more that I think that they would be at the top of the list. Are you ready? The first one is called being responsibility. Being responsible for your health. If I ask any one of you here tonight, do you think who's responsible for your health? What would you say? Some of you said you are. No, I'm not. Some people are like, hey, Dr. Jean-Guy, can you help me out? Yeah, I can help you out, but ultimately you are. Everybody says that you are. However, many times, based on our action, we don't really take responsibility for our health. Right? Based on our action, we want somebody else to be responsible. If I don't feel good, I'm going to go see the doctor, and the doctor is going to, right? He's going to do X, Y, Z, whatever the doctor does. I'm going to wait until I have symptoms, then I'm going to count on the doctor to make me healthy. Number 2 is having the right information. If you don't have the right information, is it easy today being on Dr. Google? I mean, everybody goes on Dr. Google. You can't lie to me. I mean, I know people do that all day long, right? They come in, they know exactly what they have. They want to tell you what to do. They want to be the boss, right? Dr. Frankenstein's cure, people have that, right? They've already tried them all. Having the wrong information, that's really important. If I say to you tonight, hey, every time that there's a car accident on Kreitz Road, the cops are always there, so therefore that must be the cops' fault, what would you say? They'd be like, you're crazy. The cops are just there to help. That's not their fault. So here we go back in time, 50 plus years ago. I'm going to give you an example. It's called the Framingham Heart Study. That was one of the first heart studies was done in the United States of America, right? And they were looking at like, why do people have heart disease? And when they find out at the end, right? I mean, there's many things that they found out, but one of them is like when people have heart disease, they have high cholesterol. So then from this moment on, they're like, hey, cholesterol is the bad guy. And from this moment on is we're going to be, pushing this narrative on to be like, hey, this is the bad guy. It's like me telling you tonight, every time there's a car accident on Kreitz Road, the cops are always there, so therefore it must be the cops' fault. What would you say? Do you see how it doesn't make any sense? I want you to think about this for a minute. Maybe a better question is to say, if all the people that have heart disease, they have high cholesterol, wouldn't that be a good question to say, well, why is that? Why would that be? So maybe I'm going to tell you a little bit more because I'm holding back here for a minute, right? So now every decision that we make as it relates to our health, all of you here, you just confess, you told me the next 12 months you want to be healthier. Yes. Yes? You still want to be healthier? Right? Next 12 months you said yes. And I say to you that every question, the question is everything. So first, we need to be able to define health. You follow me? You need to be able to define health. If you don't, it depends. How you define health will just will change the course of your life. If health to you is like, hey, when I don't have any symptoms, that means I'm healthy. Or if I feel fine, that means I'm healthy. Or if I go to the doctor and I get a prescription for my blood pressure, the doctor said my numbers look good and they're managing my disease, that means I'm healthy. I want you to just think about that. Any of those definitions, you need to understand how you define health. Every decision you'll make from this point on is going to be based on that definition. You follow me? According to the World Health Organization, it says health is when you have optimal function, and it goes on to say physically, mentally, socially, and spiritually, and not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. So what that means is for all of us in here to be healthy is when your body is functioning 100%, and then it goes on to say physically, mentally, socially, and spiritually, and not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. So what that means is you being healthy is when your body is working 100%. Are you following me? Right? So what that means is if a person says, in the United States of America right now, if we give all the drugs for free and we have all surgery for free, do you think we'd be any healthier? Yes or no? Likely not. I mean, it wouldn't matter. So what happened is that what we call healthcare today, right? Healthcare today, many of you have heard this before. You're like, is it really healthcare or it's more like sick care? When we go to the doctor, for most people, we've been trained, we go to the doctor, and when we go to the doctor, it's like, hey, I have some kind of symptoms, right? There's something wrong for most people, right? If it's not broken, let's not fix it. A lot of people do that. Yes, I know you guys don't do that, but let's just pretend here, right? So you go to the doctor and you're like, okay, something's wrong right now. I have high blood pressure. Now in medicine today, you got to understand this. This is really important. Right? What we learn is you're like, hey, we want to find out what kind of symptoms you have, and the symptoms is connected to a diagnosis. The diagnosis is connected to a medication or some kind of surgery. And that's how we operate in regular medicine today. This is what we do. Do you think that people are healthier if they take more drugs or less drugs? I've never had anybody argue that. They're like, well, I mean, the healthier a person is, they should be taking the least amount they're going to take. Would that make sense? So in this first paradigm of health, of how we understand health, is people are like, hey, listen, If we're managing my numbers and my lab looks good, as I'm taking my pills, I'm doing good. The doctor says I'm doing good. But are you really doing good, though? I want you to think of that for a minute. This is really important. How you define health, every decision you make from this point on in your life, it's going to be based on how you define you being healthy. The next paradigm of health, there's people that define health. They're like, hey, you know what? I don't like to take pills. I just take natural stuff. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm going to tell you what that means. I'm going to give you a chiropractic joke. Are you ready? People say, hey, Dr. Jean-Guy, this one time my neck was killing me, and the doctor cracked my neck, and I haven't had to go back in 25 years. I'm like, oh, that's great, right? I had a symptom. Somebody's going to make me feel better, right? And then as soon as the symptom is gone, that means that I'm doing great. Oh, I have a cold. I'm going to go to the health food store. I'm going to get some oil. I'm going to get some homeopathic. I'm going to get some nutrition. Once it's done, I'm done with it. I'm going to go on vacation for spring break. I'm 20 pounds overweight. I'm going to start exercising. And then by the time I go on spring break, I'm going to put my Speedo on. I'm going to look good. And then I come back and I don't exercise ever again. I want you to think of that. You guys are laughing because you're like, doesn't make sense. People do that every day. Right? People do that every day. Is that possible to have cancer and the person don't have any symptom? Is that possible? I'm going to tell you, my cousin Emil, he was 55 years old. He went to the doctor. They took blood. They found out that he had kidney filtration problem. They're like, no problem. We're going to do an ultrasound of your kidney. They did. After the ultrasound, they did a biopsy of the kidney. After they did that, the doctor says, listen, you got cancer. The doctor said to him, we're going to send you over to the surgeon. He's going to cut you open, going to go in there, going to clean you up. Right? You're going to be okay. Surgeon goes in there, cut him open, start going there, look around, find out cancer has spread out everywhere in his body. They sew him back up, give him 6 months to live. To the day 6 months later, he was dead. And I always tell people, my cousin Emil didn't have any symptoms. He felt fine, didn't miss work, right? Never missed work, didn't have any symptoms, but yet 6 months later, he was gone. What's the moral of the story? I want you guys to know how you define health is everything. So if we define health by just saying, hey, if I don't have any symptoms, I'm doing fine, or I know you men don't do that, but let's just pretend. I'm going to give you a little uppercut for you men here in the room. Men would say, hey, if it's not broken, let's not. Yeah, they're like, it doesn't hurt. I'm fine. Right? And then you have really this thing here, what we call true health. I want you to understand that. This is really important. Some of you have never been here. I want you to hear me here. This is really important. When a person is in this paradigm here, you define health as when you have 100% function, and then it goes on to say mentally, right, spiritually, physically. Having the understanding that you being healthy, if I say to you tonight, how many of you here agree that we should exercise? How many of you here agree you should exercise for the rest of your life? We all agree? Well, that's good. How many of you here agree that you should be eating food? How many of you here agree you should do that for the rest of your life? Here we go. So if a person wants to be healthy, it's like you gotta eat well. So I'm gonna define that in a minute. You gotta move well, and then you gotta think well. Thinking well, I'm gonna tell you something here tonight that many of you you already know, but maybe some of you don't know, is we know today that your mind can create sickness. We also know that your mind can create health. So that is super important. You got to think well. You got to be around people that you can love and they can love you back. You can feel safe around them and they're going to be feeling safe around you. You can read a good book that's going to be putting into you, right, to lift you up, to make you better. You got to be able to think well. And if you don't think well, I tell people that I just like stop people every day. People are like, hey, this is my fibromyalgia. That's my blood pressure. I'm like, no, that's not yours. Because when you start claiming your diseases, you will have it. It's going to be yours. 100%. So you got to think well. You got to move well. You got to eat well. Sitting on the couch, watching the March Madness, I have nothing against that. However, right, sitting on the couch, moving your eyes, right, thinking that you're exercising, that's not exercise. Yes? Do you understand? You go back 100 years ago, 200 years ago, what did people do? Number one, they did not sit. That just didn't happen. This 10,000 step, it's on the low end. Do you understand that? 10,000 step is on the low end. Most people don't know that, right? Sitting at a chair, when people say, hey, smoking is worse than, right? Sitting is worse than smoking. I mean, really it is. There's a Nobel Prize winner. This is back in the 80s that found out that 90% of brain nutrition has to do with proper motion of your joints. 90% of brain nutrition has to do with proper motion of your joints. So that means that if you don't move, your brain dies. How's that sound? Does that sound good? Right? You should say no right now. Right? You should be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. It is impossible. I'm reading this book right now on immunity. This medical doctor says, listen, when family used to come in when I was in my younger years in medical practice, they would bring up nutrition and I would be like, there's not much to that. And then he says, knowing what I know today, when family comes in now and they're talking to me about nutrition, I know nutrition has a huge impact on people's health. I grew up on a farm. I know a little bit about farming. I know a little bit about food. I'm a nutritionist by training, right? When people eat cake, cookies, candies, ice cream, bread, rice, and pasta every day, you have no chance. No chance. Zero. You cannot be at the fast food restaurant every day thinking you have a chance. You have none. But you know what's amazing? Some people have been to the fast food restaurant for 30 years and they're still standing. Just imagine that, right? People do that day in and day out. It's impossible for you not to have chronic illnesses when you're at the fast food restaurant every day. It's impossible. It's impossible. The way that you build the walls, all of us here, now listen, all of us here, we have the same gene. Right? There's some people out there, they're like, hey, you know what? It's just a genetic problem. My family, everybody's got heart disease. And you know what I tell people? And I want you to hear me. I said, the only thing that runs in people's family is silliness. Because you know what? You make the same decision, you eat the same thing, you have the same lifestyle, the outcome's going to be the same. They have this whole new science now, it's called epigenetics. You might want to look it up. And what that means is above the gene. And what that means is your genes are just like a big library of books, and you decide which one you're going to be pulling off the shelf. Now you should be really excited. If you did not really understand what I just said, that means that if you choose to, right, you can change the course of what your family have experienced in the past by changing the way you take care of yourself. Does that make sense? So how long should you be thinking well for? Forever. How long should you be eating well for? How long should you be exercising for? When should you stop? Just when you feel good? Right? Yeah, you should just does it matter? Does it matter if your mom or your dad had heart disease? Does it matter? It doesn't matter. That's not what you exercise for. You exercise for to be the best version of yourself you can be. Make sure your brain can eat. Yes? So you got to think well, you got to move well, you got to eat well, and you got to do this for the rest of your life. This is really like changing the lifestyle. The other day, I'm watching this, watching this interview between RFK and then this medical doctor. And RFK and the medical doctor says, well, listen, when people are healthy, they were talking about the measles. They're like, when people are healthy, it's almost like it's really, really hard for people to get it. They're like, when people are healthy, when people are like, they move, they eat the right food, they think well, it's really, really hard for people to get the measles. Do you understand that? Do you understand what was said? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, this is called lifestyle, yes? All the people can do that. Everybody can do that. You follow me? Right? People can do that. So I want you to know, I want to encourage you here today, because you're sitting there, and guess what? We're right in this big soup of chronic illnesses, and people are like, well, this is just genetic. Everybody's got it in my family. Do you know that there's hundreds of thousands of women that have the breast cancer gene, but yet they don't have breast cancer? Why do you think that is? Why do some people do and some people don't? Because what happened is, guess what? Your genes are just like a gun. It's fully loaded, and then you got to pull the trigger, yes? This is how you treat your body. So there's ways around it. Yeah, if you treat your body better, then you can go around it. Now, don't just say yes. You should say yes and smile at the same time, because you're like, hey, that's good, because there's something I can do about it. If you don't understand the definition of by which you're operating, starting tonight when you leave, then you don't know where you're going to be heading. Now, if I say to you, right? So you got to think well, you got to move well, you got to eat well. And you got to do this for the rest of your life. And you got to make sure that things are functioning properly. Right? I want you to think that your brain is in charge of controlling 70 trillion cells. How many cells? 70 trillion cells. That's a lot of cells. Would you agree? So your brain's going to send this life energy through. It's going to go out the nerves to every organ, tissue, cells in your body. Right? 70 trillion cells. That's a lot of cells. Your brain and nervous system is in charge of controlling 70 trillion cells. 70. Your brain is in charge of controlling 70 trillion cells, and the way you can feed your brain is by this thing called motion. Nobel Prize winner in the 80s, right, says that 90% of brain nutrition. I'm repeating myself. I'm not getting senile. I'm just repeating myself because I want you to know that when you leave. People need to move more. When you move more, guess what? Your brain works better. Because when people have problems with attention, concentration, focus, your brain is dying. Your brain doesn't have the food. Did you know that those chronic illnesses today, those neurodegenerative, illness like Parkinson and Alzheimer's and dementia and early dementia, they're like, hey, what happened is your brain is frying. Your brain is fried. It's like diabetes type 3. People have so much ultra-processed food in their diet that their brain is on fire. Who wants that? Raise your hand. Well, good. You guys are paying attention, right? So your brain is being fed when there's motion. Now, there's 24 bones in your spine. Those are joints, just like your wrist joints, just like your knee joints, just like your ankle joints. Yes? You follow me? Right? Did you know that the joints in your entire body that has the greatest impact on brain function is the top 2 bone in your neck? It's called C1 and C2. There's more mechanoreceptors. Those are big words, right? Just for the doctors. There's more mechanoreceptors per square inch than in the entire body that has an impact on brain function. So what I say to you is I'm like, hey, you know what? If your brain is not capable of sending the right message at the right time to all the places in your body, then your body is not going to work the way that it should be working. Did you know that you have to go from 100% function all the way down to 60% function before people start having symptoms? What that means is you need to have at least 40% of sickness, death, or disease before you start feeling it. How many of you here just want to wait until you have symptoms to do something for your health? How many of you? Anybody? The reason why I'm telling you this tonight is because I want you to know, because people don't know. And if you knew, it's got to be reinforced, and you need to know more. Because we need to have more people healthy. Do you follow me? We need to have more people healthy. You know what I told Dr. Nebling the other day? I said, listen, your office needs to be full. Everybody needs a doctor. Everybody, doesn't matter who you are. But you know what? Everybody needs a doctor, and people come in, they're like, yeah, I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm working on my health. I want to be better. Yes, I'm doing great. Because believe me, we need more of that because we're going down. We're going down. Right? So I want you to get this here. This is important. Are you ready? Do you think that people have headaches because they have a lack of aspirin in their brain? Yes or no? Very good. That's the right answer. Do people have acid reflux because they don't have enough Tums in their belly? Thank you. Right? We're getting somewhere. You guys understand that? I want to find out why. Right? What happened is when people get beat up. Do people get beat up today? People get beat up. People have accidents. People are sitting all day long. People have had they were in car accident. They have slip trauma. Just name it. They have stress. Anybody does not have stress here? Anybody? Nobody? Well, very good. We're talking to the right people then. Right? People come from work. They're like this. I'm like, what's going on? How was your day? Oh, great. I'm like, really? Great. So let me make the connection for you. Are you ready? Right? Your brain is in charge of connecting 70 trillion cells. Right? And this life energy goes through your spinal cord, out the nerves, to every organ, tissue, cells in your body. When people have damage to their spine and nervous system, then what happens? The body starts breaking down. The body starts breaking down. Today, there's a lot of studies in psychoneuroimmunology. Right? That there's a connection between those systems. So what happens is when there's damage to the spine and nervous system, and if it's not corrected, then what happens is your body is breaking down. You follow me? The body is going to be breaking down. How do we know that? This lady, one time, she comes in, she's 16 years old, she's got headaches, which is really common. We see a lot of people with headaches, right? My wife, at one time, she's like, 100% of people, we help them with headaches. And I'm like, don't you think that the percentage is a little high, right? But she's like 100%. I'm like, okay, well, maybe my statistics is 98, but lots of people with headaches. And we help people with headaches every day. So this lady comes in, her name is Victoria, and she says, Dr. Jean-Guy, she comes in with her mom, she's 16 years old, and then she's like, I've got headaches. And I'm like, okay. So we did an evaluation of her, and we took x-rays of her spine, and then we determined that this area here in her neck was not working properly. Now I'm going to tell you this C1, C2 is really important for attention, focus, concentration. People that have issues with ADD, ADHD, 25 in practice, I've seen lots of them. Now I want you to listen to me here. She's got headaches, right? So we start giving her adjustments. And then within 4 weeks, she's feeling better. She's got no more headaches. And the mother comes in one day, she got tear to her eyes, and she says, Dr. Jean-Guy, can I see you in the back room? When people do that to me, I always feel like I'm in trouble or something, right? So we get into the back room, and she says to me, she's like, listen, thank you for giving me my daughter back. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, we didn't tell you when we came in, but she was diagnosed with clinical depression. Every time she come in the house, she goes right into a bedroom, didn't talk to any of us. Since you've been taking care of her in the past week or two, now she comes into the house, she comes right with us, start talking to us, which hasn't happened since she's been diagnosed with depression. We weren't trying to treat her depression. We weren't treating nothing. But I want you to understand that your spine and nervous system has a huge impact on a person's health, because if things don't function properly, you're never going to be able to be at your best. 25 years, right? Now listen to me. Kim comes in one day, it's on Saturday morning. She says, Dr. Jean-Guy, can you adjust me right here? And I said, what do you mean? I'm like, who's the doctor? Is that me or you? She's like, well, every time I get an adjustment right here, I'm sorry, I just moved here from Canada. Every time I get an adjustment right there, my acid reflux goes away. If your brain is not capable, now I'm going to talk to the food people here. Are you ready for you foodie people? Foodie people that likes organic food, check this out. Let's say you put the best organic food into your body, but let's pretend that you have damage to your spine and nervous system right here, and those nerves going to your stomach don't work properly. And every time that you eat, your brain is supposed to be telling your stomach to produce some hydrochloric acid and some digestive enzyme. Yes? That's what your brain is supposed to do. But if it doesn't happen properly, guess what's going to happen? Dozens and dozens and dozens over the past 25 years, people that have acid reflux, they get adjusted, goes away. I don't tell that to people because I don't know. Drea just left the office last week. This was on Thursday, right? She's 40 years old and she's got bladder incontinence. Some of you here, you probably know people like this. She's only 40. How would you like to just pee your pants? Right? She's like, Dr. Jean-Guy, it's embarrassing. What happened is when we took pictures of her spine in here, right? She had damage to her spine and nervous system, right? And we started to correct that. She was on a corrective care program. And after we started to care for her, after 8 weeks, for the first time now in years, she didn't pee her pants. How about that? Now, this other lady, her name is Ann. She's like, close to 70. When she was done with her corrective care program, she's like, I never thought you could help things like this, but I want you to know that I don't pee my pants anymore. I'm like, how about that? Good for you, right? What I'm trying to get across to you is, guess what? Some of you, maybe you've never been to the chiropractor. Some of you are like, I'm scared of them. I'm scared of you, right? You're scary. People have neck pain, back pain. They have sciatic problem. They have, those kind of things. And guess what? We take care of those people. And I've done that for 25 years. But I also want you to know that when your spine and nervous system doesn't work properly, there's also other things that can happen, right? Unfortunately or fortunately, there's probably no less than 50 women that have come to the office over 25 years that have gotten pregnant prior to not being able to get pregnant. Just so you know, I'm married. I didn't do it, right? I'm married. My wife is right there, right? But I want you to understand, right, that your nervous system has a huge impact on a person's health. You follow me? So what happened is when people have damage and it's not corrected or not fully corrected, then the body starts breaking down. And then you tag this along with those other lifestyle things that people don't do what they're supposed to be doing. And guess what? We're just like, it's developing into a big disaster. You understand that, right? So when it comes down to your health, I always tell people, I'm like, you know what? Your health, you can do whatever you want because it's your health. But just imagine here for a minute, whatever problems that you have, and you don't do anything about it. Then you wait for another 6 months, maybe a year, maybe 2 years. Do you think it's going to get better or worse? Right? Knowing that something could have been done. Knowing that something could have been done. For some of you here tonight might be like, hey, you know what? I'd like to play with my grandkids, and I don't feel I cannot get on my knees to do that. Some of you might be like, hey, I'd like to go on a trip, but you know what? I got to stay here, stay put, because I have to wait until my next doctor's appointment. And there's a long list, right? It's not unusual. People come in, they have an 8.5 by 11 list of medication people take, and they're just miserable every day, unfortunately. Right? Knowing that something could have been done. What I'm hearing often is people are 50 and they're like, I just got over the hump. How can that be? Who would want to take that as truth? 15, you're done? Right? It's supposed to get worse from this point on? That's crazy. Right? So I tell people, I'm like, listen, knowing that something could have been done, that there's something more. When you change your paradigm of what you think health is, right? I can tell you stories all night. You guys can go talk to Pat. She's right there behind. She probably doesn't like that I do this, but Pat was taking 5 different kinds of medication, lost 100 pounds, right? She's the one who could not play with her grandkids. And then for some reason, at one of the grandkids' birthday, now she goes and plays soccer with them. Like, what's wrong with you? Right? At the age of 72 years old. She doesn't want me to say that either. She's going to be mad at me, but those are just true people. They're just real people, right? People sit there and they're like, is this just a story? Is that for real? Right? Yeah, it's for real. Why would that not be real for you? Why would that not be real for the people that you love and care about? Right? Why would that not be? Why would that not be the norm for people to be healthy? I want you to think of that. Why would that not be the norm instead of everybody falling apart around you? Or maybe that's you and you're like, that's just normal. I'm old. And I want you to know old in my book is when you're 98. If you're not 98, I don't see any of you at 98 right now, so none of you are old. Right? So that's the reason why before I feed you, right? This is the last part. Before I feed you, it's the most important part, but I'm going to give you another important part is to give you the opportunity, right, to take action. The opportunity for a wellness breakthrough evaluation, which is, right, when people that have never had an evaluation for their spine and nervous systems to allow them, right, to have this evaluation. And what we do is, we first going to find out, what your health concerns are. Because the way that we look at the body is we look at the body from a holistic point of view. And then what we're going to do is once we gather some information, we're going to do a spinal exam and a neurological exam to find out, right, the area that are of concern to us. And once we find this out, this lady last week, I start poking around in her spine, right? And by the time she's all said and done, comes up the table and she's like, you just touched those spots that I just did not know they hurt. I'm like, well, I've only done this for 25 years, all day long. It's like I can feel things. And then what we do is we take people's posture. So now a lot of people, today, they always come in, they talk to me about their posture. And your posture is important. I'm going to give you this graphic here, just one graphic. Are you ready? We come into this world like this, and we leave like this, right? So if any one of you here, you look at yourself in the mirror and you start going like this, it's not good. When you have abnormality in your posture, right? Your posture is as bad as having heart disease today. Matter of fact, in adult spine deformity research, it tells you as it relates to quality of life, is that it's as bad as what it does for people. So your posture is important. So we do this advanced, postural assessment because your posture is a window to your spine and nervous system. And then after that, we're going to take some advanced biomechanical digital x-rays. And by the time we do this, we're going to find out exactly where there's damage in your spine and where is that at and how long has it been there for? Can that be corrected? And if it can be corrected, then we'll have a plan for that. Right? Once we're done with that and we can find out, we just bring the person to the next visit, right? It's called the report of findings. And then we explain to people to see what's going on with them based on the concern that they have. Can that be corrected? Yes or no? If it can be corrected, what will be the game plan to do that? So this is called their wellness breakthrough evaluation. Now just imagine you go to emergency right now. Any one of you here, you go to emergency tonight, right now, right? They take a full set of x-rays on you. How much you think they charge you for that? Let's just say your insurance don't pay for it. Give me some numbers. This guy said shit. I'm not sure that's the number. But what's that? Thousands. I want to go take x-rays at the emergency right now, right? Thousands. I mean, it could be. I mean, I've seen some of those bills. I mean, it could be. But if it was warranted, if it was needed, would that be okay? Yeah, the answer is yes, no doubt about it. Right? So I tell people, I'm like, listen, when you come in for your wellness breakthrough evaluation, we usually charge $320 for that, which is really nothing for what you're going to get out of it. But because you're here tonight, I believe that if you're sitting here tonight at some level, for some reason, right, you care about your health. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here if somebody just dragged you here, right? She says yes. And when you schedule your appointment to have your wellness breakthrough evaluation, either here at Gilead or our other office in Friend, or it's going to be only, right, $69. $69. What do you have to lose? Say it, Bill. Say nothing. You have nothing to lose, right? You have nothing to lose to find out if there's a problem before you think that there's a problem. Why would you wait, right? You don't have to wait anymore. Just do something. Because remember, people wait, and this is just what happened to my cousin Emil when he was 55 years old. Why would you wait? Right? So don't wait. Take action. So when you schedule your appointment, it's going to be only $69. For what? For everything that I talked to you about. You'll have a full evaluation with a report, and then we'll be able to tell you if we can help you or not. Or maybe it's not the place for you, and we'll tell you that too. Right? Once in a while, people ask, they're like, yeah, what about my insurance? I'm like, that's a great question. We accept all the insurance. When you bring it in, then we're going to do courtesy check for you. Does that sound fair? Right? Now you're sitting here and you're like, hey, why would you do that? Bill is thinking that. Why would you do that? Why would you allow me to schedule an appointment for $69? Matter of fact, it's not just for you. It could be for people that are not here. You can schedule them too, right? But why would you do that? I'm going to tell you why. Right? September 14, 1982. Are you ready? September 14, 1982. Right? When my father left that day, right? They roll him up, right? They roll him out right in front of us. And as they're rolling him out, right? I was 9 years old. My brother was 8 years old. My other brother was 7. My sister was 12 years old. My other sister was 13 years old. You know, and guess what? My dad had a heart attack on his way to the hospital. You know, and I never saw my dad again. Leaving behind, right, 5 kids and my mom. And if my dad would have been sitting right here, right here tonight, right here, 10 years prior to him getting sick, the chances are he would have seen me getting married. He would have seen his grandkids playing sports. But you know what? That never happened because guess what? Nobody's ever taken the time to really tell him really what health was all about. Do you follow me? That's the reason why. I want you to know that. You don't need to wait. So what's going to happen now is they're going to bring the food and they're going to bring the bread first. So I'm going to watch, right? If you eat the bread, then you're in trouble. It's a test. Just so you know, it's a test. I'm just kidding, right? So they're going to be bringing the food. I want to pray for your food. Before I pray for your food, I want to tell you this last story. How many of you here, besides Sharon, know the story about the cows and the bison? Nobody? There's no storyteller in here? Right? You can look this up. So this is a true story. Look this up. Amber is like, I'm going to do that. Right? You look this up. I'm going to tell you the story about the cows and the bison. Do you know that when there's a storm, if you have like cattle, if you have cows, the first thing that the cow's going to do when there's a storm is the cow's going to back up and the cow is going to be like, yeah, maybe I can avoid this storm, right? That's the cows. That's what they do. But if you have a bison, right? Bison's going to do the complete opposite. They're going to be running right into the storm. They're going to go right through it. What I want you to get out of this here tonight is, guess what? You don't need to wait until there's a storm. You don't need to wait. You can get through this right now. Because you know what? The longer you do this here, guess what? You think it's going to get better or worse? Yeah, it's going to get worse 100% of the time. Right? So don't be the cow. Be the bison. What are you? You're the bison. She's like, yeah, sign me up. Right? She's the bison. So they're going to bring the food. I'm going to pray for you. There's this thing here on the table. They're going to come around the table. Some of you might not be really technical savvy, but if you are, you can just scan the QR code and it will take you through the process of scheduling your appointment. It's going to ask you which office, right? If you don't like me, that's okay. You can sign up here at this office with Gilead with Dr. Denise, also known as my wife. She's the boss. That's Dr. Denise. And then we have our other office in Frandor for your wellness breakthrough evaluation. You can go step by step right on the QR code. Fair enough? And then we'll come around the table here. And then if you have a question, we'll be able to answer your question. Does that sound fair? Okay, fair enough. So they're going to bring the food. Just remember about the bread, okay? I'm watching. Okay? Father, thank you for giving us this time here tonight. I just pray for each and every one that is here tonight, that whatever seeds that were planted, number one is if it's from you, that it's going to stick. And if it's not, then it's just going to fly by with no consequence. But if it is from you, we just pray, Lord, that as those seeds are planted there in people's mind and heart, that they're going to grow. And you're going to continue for people to know in their heart that you want them to be healthy. And that they need to continue to be seeking the truth as it relates to health and wellness, that you want your people to be healthy. That you design people to be healthy. You want people to be healthy. And I just pray that you just continue, right, to show them the way, to show them what needs to be done for them to just move that health needle, for them to continue that if you're healthy right now is to continue on this journey of like, how can you be better? And if you're not, what can you do to come out of it to reverse chronic illnesses? Because it's reversible. And I just pray that you show each and everyone here in this room tonight how to do that and what their next step is. And I just pray blessing over them, over their family. I pray that you bless this food that is about to nourish your body in Jesus' name. Okay, how do we do this, Dr. Denise? Okay, who's going first? Well, okay, Bill. Good job, Bill. Go ahead. Who's the next table? So here we're going to take a few minutes. We're going to take a few minutes while you guys are waiting to go get some food. You can, if you're ready to schedule your appointment, you can go ahead and do that. And then I want to be available. Go ahead. We're going to go here to the right, and then you're going to make a circle, and you're going to come back in through the middle with your food. So those people that are still sitting here, if you have questions, I'm going to answer some of your questions if you have some. If you don't, then I'm going home. Who's got some questions? She's got some question. Yes. It's very unlikely. In my experience, people have had injuries from the time people are born. Matter of fact, there's lots of study on the birth trauma today. Being born, it can start right from day one. So there's many things from falling off the bed, from playing sports, from being in car accident, from sitting 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 20 years, being in bad posture. I mean, all of those things can do it. Now remember, stress is defined as anything that has to do with chemical, emotional, and physical. Any of those things can have an effect on the spine and nervous system. Any of those things. It can. It can. I never tell people that, but it can. What happened is your spine and nervous system is the master controller system in your body, so it has an impact on a lot of other systems. It can have an influence. For me, in my book, right? I think this is part of a healthy lifestyle to make sure your spine and nervous system is working properly, 100%. My kids, they were born at home. I mean, I always tell people I deliver my kids, but I didn't do anything. She did all the work, right? But the only thing they've had in their whole life is they've had a chiropractic adjustment and nutrition. That's it. If that tells you something. So it has an impact on the entire body. 100%. Who else? Yes. So what I said about heart disease and cholesterol, right? What I said is you got to understand the question is if a person has high cholesterol, you got to ask the question why. Number one is 75% of your cholesterol is produced by your own liver, 75%. And what happens is when there's inflammation in the body, your body uses cholesterol to patch up the inflammation. This is what in medicine today they call that the bad cholesterol. God did not do anything bad, just so you know. But what LDL does is this is your taxi cab to go from the liver to go to places where there's inflammation. So when they see LDL being high, they're like, hey, that's bad. And then they're like, your HDL, oh, that's good. No, God didn't make anything bad or good. It's all good. The reason why it's there, it's serving a purpose. You understand? So you got to understand, what is the body trying to do? If my LDLs are high, you got to be like, well, why is that? You got to ask the question, why? If I have a headache, why do I have a headache? If we don't ask the question why, we're never going to get to the core of a person's issues. Yes? Remember, you don't have any issues. There's only solutions. Uh-oh. That's not mine. I don't know. I'm not in charge of the app, but Gabrielle can help you out. There's many different days that you should be able to pick from. Okay, who's that? Is Gabrielle still here? She's going to help you out. She'll come and help you out. Tanya, you can do it. You can do it. Bill, do you have any questions for me, sir?
I have a question.
Yes, dear.
We're new patients here.
Say that again.
We're new patients with Dr.
Oh, yeah?
What do you do different in your office that she doesn't do here? I think she said you're more specialized with stuff.
Shh.
Just curious.
Um, there's some tools that we use that are different for different problems. Yeah, depending of what people needs. So, for instance, in the spine world, we do decompression. So when people have issues with disc, so we do decompression on people. So, but we have different tools that we use.
Okay.
Uh,
Now, is that decompression? Is that covered usually by insurance, or is that like an extra?
uh, every insurance, they usually have different rules and regulation. Usually, when people come in, we check that.
Okay.
That's the first thing that we do when anybody would be coming into the office or they're inquiring. After we do the evaluation, then number one, we got to find out what the person is in need of based on their problems and what we feel would be the best course of action to correct their problems. And then based on what we believe is needed and is best for them, we would check with the insurance to see what their rules and regulations are.
Okay. Since I've already had my X-rays and stuff done here, is that something that you could maybe look into and get back with me about, or
Oh,
the
sure.
decompression part is what I'm.
Yeah, yeah. You can if you tell Dr. Denise there, she can.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
Okay.
We'll work together as a team.
Cool.
Yeah.
But she's still the boss.
Yeah.
When I'm at my office, if I'm at my office and she's not around, I claim that I am, but just at my office. As soon as I walk out, then it's done. You know, Bill. You got it. Hey, what happened, ladies? You're not eating, Jeanette?
Yeah, I know. I was just trying to hurry up and get all signed up on this.
Oh, yeah, well, do that. Hurry up because they're going to take all your spots. Yeah, priorities of life. Priorities.
Mhm.